Hello, and welcome to episode 10 of 1 minute and 43 seconds. I'm your host, Megan, and today, joined with me in the studio, is my dear friend, Soheeb.
Hey guys, glad to be back.
Thanks again for coming, Soheeb. Today we're going to do a pretty popular case, which many of you may already have heard of, and that is the case of Elisa Lam. Now, Elisa Lam was a Canadian student in Vancouver. She was 21 years old at the time of her disappearance, and this is a crazy story, so buckle up.
That's the first time I'm hearing it, so let's go.
All right, so Elisa was visiting California in the year 2013, and she just decided to take a trip to the States and visit some famous cities, some famous spots in California. So this was January 2013, and she was visiting downtown LA. And she was staying at the Cecil Hotel, which is actually a famous hotel in LA, but it's actually got kind of a dark history. So from what I understand, there's been
lots of murders in that place.
Lots of murders and suicides and just kind of creepy, just unfortunate things that have taken place.
So what you get for being on Skid Row in LA.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a weird story because it's creepy, but it's also very sad, and it involves a lot of kind of moving parts here. And I think people are so drawn to it because of the creepiness, but we have to remember that this was a real person with a family, and ultimately it's just a sad case. But all right, let's get started. So she traveled alone to LA. She just kind of wanted to see some sights. She visited the San Diego Zoo. She arrived in Los Angeles on January 26, 2013. After 2 days, she checked into the Cecil Hotel, which is near Skid Row, as Soheeb mentioned. Something interesting, she originally was sharing a room with some roommates, but the roommates actually complained about her and said that she was exhibiting kind of odd behavior, which I've never found like that to be specified, what that odd behavior was. But anyway, she was moved to her own room after 2 days.
She was diagnosed with bipolarism and depression, so...
Bipolarism? Yeah.
Bipolar disorder? What do you want to call it?
Yeah, so Elisa did have some mental things she was struggling with, but I understand I think she was taking medication for it. But anyway, so she was supposedly exhibiting some strange behavior with her roommates, and she moved to her own room. She's still in LA on February 1st, and this is the day she was scheduled to check out of the Cecil Hotel, and she was going to go to Santa Cruz. And she had been calling her parents every single day up until this point, and they did not hear from her on the 1st of February. So her parents actually from Canada called the Los Angeles Police Department, and then her family flew to Los Angeles to help with the search. So they kind of really jumped on this because they knew it was not right that she was not contacting them.
Plus, she had a history of mental illness. There's got to be something there.
Right. So hotel staff said that Elisa was alone, that every time they saw her that day, she was by herself. The only other person who recalled seeing her was a manager of a bookstore nearby, who said that she was outgoing, very friendly, very lively. And what she was doing at the bookstore was she was buying gifts to take home to her family. So the bookstore owner or the manager said that she was talking about, what book she was getting, and she was just talkative, acting very outgoing and talkative. So that was the last person that had seen her that day, I believe. So police searched her hotel room, and they had dogs go through the building, including the rooftop, but the dogs were not successful in detecting her scent.
Well, I mean, if she's in a big, what is it called? A reservoir, I guess? Or
We haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, but of course the dogs aren't going to find her on the roof. She's
Yeah, but we haven't said that part yet.
That's why dogs can't find people through water.
Great.
You're welcome.
Okay, stay tuned. After she had been last seen, the LAPD decided they needed more help here. And so they printed flyers with her image, and they posted it all over online to bring it to the public's attention in hopes that somebody would recognize her and would have seen her. At, what was it? So February 1st was the last day that she was seen. February 15th, after she still hadn't been seen, LAPD released a video, which is now very famous online. And it's of Elisa in one of the elevators by a video surveillance camera. And this is the day that she was last seen. So it's a 2.5 minute long video. If you haven't seen it, I recommend looking it up online.
It is creepy.
Yeah, fair warning. It's creepy. But this is the last.
But it's obvious that she's just having a manic episode.
Well, let's not get to there. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to play the video here for Sohib, and we're kind of going to talk about it as it happens, and you can follow along if you'd like. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of react to the video here. So again, this took place on February 1st, the day that Elisa was last seen in the elevator at the Cecil Hotel. Okay, so the door opens and she gets in. She's looking at the numbers. It looks like she's pushing. At least one
whole
number.
Row of numbers.
It does look like she's pushing the whole row.
The whole row is lit up.
And now
there.
she's standing in the corner just waiting for the door to close. It's not closing. She jerks her head out and looks both ways and then jerks back in.
She might be hearing noises or sound or voices in her head. Now she's hiding.
It almost looks like she's trying to hide someone because she goes into the corner in the front of the elevator to the.
But no one comes by in this 2.5 minutes. So she's looking, she's hearing. I'm guessing because this video has no sound. So she could be we don't know if she's actually hearing stuff in her head or if there are external sounds that she's listening to.
So now she hops out of the elevator. She's outside the elevator now. By the way, the door is still open.
The door doesn't close the entire time, which is another weird part. It's like the door should have closed by now.
A lot of people talk about that online.
It's
so now she's fully outside of view. Kind of her right arm is in view. She's making very strange gestures with her arms.
Well, yeah, she's doing some hand puppeteering, I guess.
That's a really good way to describe it.
Shadow puppets. That's what she's doing, shadow puppets.
Okay, so now she steps back into the elevator, and she's back to the buttons, pushing buttons again. It looks kind of like she's just pushing all sorts of...
She could be on X. We don't know.
Well...
Although we do, because they said they didn't find any in her body, and seeing as this was the day before, she would have had it in her system for a little bit longer.
No, this is the day she was last seen.
Right, but the day before she died...
We don't know if she died.
Well, the ME puts it at the day after.
Okay, so now she's stepped back outside the elevator after the buttons have been pushed and they haven't done anything. She's now making these very strange gestures with her hands as if she's gesturing to somebody off into the right-hand side of the frame.
It is absolutely a manic episode. There's no other way to... Or a drug-induced episode.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one, and it's very sad.
And that's it. It ends with her leaving the elevator, and we don't know what happens next because we don't see her again.
There's actually a split second. This is creepy, but in other versions I've seen, so she walks off at the end to the left, right?
Yeah.
At the very end, the elevator doors actually close, and then the video stops. So
it took 2.5 minutes for the elevator doors to close. But here's the thing. If the elevators took 2.5 minutes to close, I would have been pissed.
Well, yeah. You heard us narrating the elevator video, but I really do recommend to go watch it on YouTube. You can find it if you just type Elisa Lam elevator video. But this case gets even more bizarre and strange. So the video actually drew worldwide attention, and it was actually viral in China because Elisa is of Chinese ancestry. So
it was also 2013. There's not a lot going on in the world.
yeah, so I mean, it was shared like a lot on Chinese media as well, and it got a lot of comments. Anything from she was possessed or the hotel is haunted to she had a drug induced episode to mental illness to that she was being hunted by somebody that she was hiding from. So all of those theories are prevalent here. But before we get into theories, I'll just go ahead and
finish the story?
Yeah, finish the story as it happened. So as the search is going on for Elisa at the Cecil Hotel and elsewhere, guests at the hotel began complaining that the water pressure was very low. And some of them even claimed that the water was black and had like a very odd taste to it. So this is very grim, but they found Elisa's body in one of the 1,000-gallon water tanks located on the roof, which was supplying water to guest rooms, a kitchen, and a coffee shop within the hotel.
So for 2 weeks, they all drank Elisa water.
Yes.
Ew.
And, it's gross. It's very grim, but it's also very sad because, I feel like this case was made into like this horror movie type scenario, which it has all of the elements for that, but at the same time it's sad because this is like a human being. This is a person that was loved. So it's very tragic. So they drained the tank and cut it open since the hatch was too small, right, to accommodate the equipment that was needed to remove her. So they ruled it. At first, they ruled it an accidental drowning with bipolar disorder as a significant factor, but obviously this has been heavily, heavily debated. Elisa was found naked, and they found her clothes that she was wearing in the elevator video in the water floating. And then all the toxicology tests that they did on her body showed, I guess they did find a very small quantity of alcohol, but they didn't find any recreational drugs in her system.
And no signs of trauma, sexual assault, or suicide, or evidence of suicide toxicology. So
That's a different sentence. That's a different sentence. So there was no evidence of physical trauma, sexual assault, or suicide. Period. Toxicology tests.
Accidental drowning in that tank. You go in, you're expecting that to come out. That is an enclosed 1,000-gallon tank, and
That's so scary, man.
Well, what's interesting is older in coastal towns like New York and LA, tall buildings, in order to maintain water pressure, they have these tanks on the roofs because they don't have the equipment in the water system to actually have good pressure in those older buildings. So they actually build these tanks on those roofs to collect water and have it gravity fed down to maintain pressure. Mm-hmm. These tanks, you wouldn't see them in, I think there's only a couple buildings in Chicago that have them. Only really, really old buildings still maintain them. And even in Chicago, the ones that have them are only there decoratively. They're not there for function anymore. Chicago's fixed its water pressure problems by adding pumps.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's all for the pressure.
Just some things that are suspicious about this. Okay? They were able to determine that she died of drowning, right? But they couldn't figure out how she ended up in this tank because the doors and stairs that had access to the roof are supposedly supposed to be locked with only staff having access to it.
But they say she could have gotten up there with the fire escape.
Right. So, I mean, the fire escape could have been a reason that she was allowed to get up there. Or if a staff member had taken her up there or accompanied her up there.
So this is an early 20th century building. I believe it was built in, 1910?
Yeah, it was it's older, for sure.
So there's a lot of accesses and weird things that can get through. They weren't designed to keep people out the best. They were more common space than anything else.
Okay, so she's on, let's say she makes it to the roof. Could she have gotten into the tank by herself? Because the tanks were 4 by 8 foot, right? And they were propped up on concrete blocks, and there was no fixed access to them. And workers that needed to access them actually had to use a ladder to look at the water, and they were protected by heavy lids that would be difficult to close from within. So there's a lot of mystery about how she ended up there and why she ended up there.
I mean, it could be demonic possession because, people who have been claimed to be possessed by demons show incredible strength, ability to do, to move in places that most people can't. That would explain a lot, actually.
Well, and a lot of people actually, I've heard that they think that she could have been on drugs, but because of the decomposition process in the water, that the results, like the toxicology, maybe they would have been broken down or whatever.
It would have been tougher, but any fat-soluble drugs, such as, things like weed, would have been easy to find if she was. Well, also if she was a habitual user, not if she was like a one-time while I'm in LA thing. Then yeah, it's going to be hard to find that in your system. It'll probably be washed away in the water after 2 weeks.
Okay, here's a creepy fact, or an interesting fact, I should say, about this case that I actually didn't know before researching it even further. But I knew that Elisa had a Tumblr blog. Are you familiar with Tumblr?
Yes, it's very 2015.
Yeah, so Elisa had a Tumblr blog where she posted a lot of artistic stuff. She really liked to take pictures. And anyway, so her Tumblr blog was updated after her death, which was, people figured it was done through the queue option, which you can schedule posts. So She could have scheduled a post to come out like in a week, and then she died, and then it happened. But another thing that was interesting is that her phone wasn't found, either with her body or in her hotel room.
Stolen.
Yeah, so, it's assumed to have been stolen, but that's kind of crazy. So people don't really know if the updates to her blog were because somebody stole her phone, somebody hacked her accounts because this case is really well known, or if it was done through the queue. She just set it to release at a certain time. So nobody really knows if it's related to her death, but I just thought that was kind of an interesting
So what's really
fact.
Scary is that there's a Sun article from yesterday that's talking about the last blog post is still online.
From Elisa?
From Elisa. That last post still online, even though it's she's been gone for 9 years now.
So what is the post?
Well, I don't know. It just says that the Tumblr whole thing is still up.
Yeah, I remember looking at her Tumblr, and
look at these. These stories are from a day ago.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. 3 hours ago? Wow. Yeah, so I remember that she had a Tumblr. She seemed really artistic, and she just seemed like she was really into quotes and really into photos. And
like every other teenage 20-something-year-old girl ever.
Yeah, but let's not demean her that way. She was a smart girl. She clearly suffered through some mental things, which, my heart goes out to her. But do you want to talk about theories now, Soheeb?
I do, because I'm firmly on either manic episode or demonic possession. Those are the only two things that could possibly be it.
Are you joking or are you real?
Real/joking.
Okay, so
Mostly real.
Let's talk about the options. So, yes, she did suffer from bipolar disorder. So, a manic episode due to mental illness is a definite
It's a
theory.
reasonable issue.
So let's talk about that. So she's not taking her medication. Maybe her roommates
Or something triggered her. She's in a new city, in a new environment.
Yeah,
There could be a lot of triggers.
true. And those roommates that she was originally paired with, they complained that she was acting strange and they didn't want her there. And so she was given a new room by herself. So that makes you think she was exhibiting odd behavior.
Well, isolation could also cause that too.
Yeah, so that's a theory. But based on that, so the issues with that theory are the door of the elevator in the video. Why isn't the door closing? Is that a malfunction on the elevator, or is that that's like a common thing in this case is why is the elevator door stuck open? Well, she's standing in there. She's pushing all these buttons. Like, did she push the door open button? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, because it doesn't look like she did, but more importantly, even if she pushed the door open button, usually that requires you to press and hold it, right? It doesn't just keep the door open indefinitely, and that's what it looks like here. According to this video, the door stayed open for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, so that's one thing that's kind of weird. I mean, it could have been a coincidence because her behavior is, yes, very bizarre.
It could have been a demonic spirit in the way of the radar and just keeping the door open. Like, if you have something sitting in that door space, it will not close. Demonic spirits count, I guess.
Yeah. So another theory is that she was murdered. And
by who and why?
Well, that's the mystery. But a lot of people think that her behavior in the elevator shows her, like, hiding from someone. Which you can see some of that, like, the way she kind of...
But you can't see anybody else. And she's, like, initially you see her going out the elevator looking both ways as if someone's there.
Correct.
But then you see her hanging out in the hallway for a good 30, 40 seconds.
Yeah, and she's kind of doing these strange gesturings with her arms.
Exactly. No one's there. Like, if someone was there, they would have mentioned it. They would have said something, because when you see that in a hotel...
Okay, but there was no sound. There was no sound on the video,
That's true. There's no sound to tell us what's going on, really. But...
I wish there was sound. I wonder what we would have been able to hear.
I mean, it's LA. You would have heard a lot of pretentiousness.
Okay, but for real though, I wonder what we could have heard there. Like, I wonder if there was any sort of noise. Like, was she talking to herself? Was there noise from outside? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean,
this is just a surveillance video.
Audio would add another dimension to our understanding, but right now we have to work with what we have, and the evidence pretty much claims or shows that this person, I mean, again, either demonic possession in which she goes crazy and this all happened the way it's looking, or she had a manic episode in which she essentially, I guess, either got so overwhelmed or so, how do I say this? She either got just overwhelmed or just so out of it that she ended up drowning herself.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so I agree that's a possibility. Let's go with the theory that somebody did this to her. Okay? Because if you look at the mental illness theory, it's like, how was she able to get up to that water tank? Because the staff needed to use ladders.
Maybe she climbed the side of it, slipped inside.
Yeah.
They did mention how they had to cut the tank open to get her out because they couldn't
the hatch is so small to get in. Yeah.
So there's still a hatch, right?
Sure.
So you could climb, like, when it comes to climbing, it takes very little actual help to get up some sort of space. You just need enough foot and finger grips to get up to whatever you need to get up to. And there's not much, like, I don't know if there's any way for us to see what the roof of the Cecil looks like, to see what we're actually climbing.
Is. Let me show you a photo. Okay, I'm pulling up a photo now of the roof with the water tanks, and I would love to get your opinion on it.
All right, let's see. Okay, so from that photo, looks like there's 4 tanks in a cluster, and they look like they're what? Okay, so they said they were 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Mm-hmm. And there's a railing next to that one right there. So you could easily climb up. Like, okay, there's steps leading up to that platform where these containers are. Correct. There's a railing behind it. That railing got to be at least halfway up. The other half is only 4 feet at that point. A person could easily pull themselves up. Oh yeah, come on. If you
I don't
stood
believe
on that
so.
railing, yeah. Granted, there is risk of her falling down.
There's a lot of risk of that.
There's a lot of risk of falling down in general, but it looks like there's enough material there that is stationary that could help someone climb to the top of these containers, and the hatch does not look like it's not like a lifting, removable hatch. It looks like it's on a hinge. So if she didn't, like, whip it, like, if she didn't fully lift it up and have it resting on one side, she could have easily lifted up a little bit, slipped in, and it would have fallen down behind her.
You think so? I mean, you're right about that.
I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm saying it's absolutely possible. Because just based on these photos, basically what I'm saying is, okay, if she didn't have a ladder, there is substantial equipment and stuff up there for her to walk on, climb on, whatever, to get to the top.
I don't think so, man. Like,
I'm looking at... Do you not... I don't know how good of a climber she was. I don't know how motivated she was. My point is, it's there, right? Sure.
I mean, it's possible, probably.
Yes, there you go. That's it. I'm just saying it's possible. I'm not.
I don't know. Like, look at this. Okay, look at this angle. So, look at the railing here.
Yeah.
And look at the height of the. Like,
yeah, no, it's a tough jump. I'll give you that. Not to mention, look at those pipes in the middle. She could have easily used those to climb up and step on top of those.
Which pipes are you talking about?
Those pipes in the middle of this 4-pack. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why climb from that end? Why not climb in the middle? We don't even know which one she was in.
So, I mean, I'll be real. I mean, it seems. I'll say this. It seems possible. Oh, okay. See, so this is a completely different angle,
right?
Yeah, this makes it look a lot more doable.
That's my point. There's enough.
Because they're 8 feet, right? You said?
Yeah, 8 feet from the bottom.
Right.
So there's enough material there for her to climb.
That's fair. I mean,
along those railings, using the wall, using the pipes that are fitted against these drums, and if you look at a top view of these containers, it looks like it's not like a fully removable hatch. It's got a hinge on it. So if she doesn't lift it all the way up and flip it to the other side for it to rest, it'll easily fall right back on her.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Yes, so it does look like it's possible.
It's possible that she went in on her.
It does look possible. But I guess then you have to ask yourself why.
Manic episode or demonic possession.
But here, let's take it this way. Yeah. If it was a murder, let's think about it like this. Okay. Somebody would have still had to get her up there. Right. Which is also going to be a chore. Which is also
very difficult, yes.
So I guess it makes more sense.
It's hard to firemen carry a body all the way up to up a ladder and everything. Yeah, it's gonna it would be tough for any method.
I don't know why I didn't think of that, but yeah, you're right. Like so if we're sitting here questioning whether she could have gotten up there herself, but meanwhile, if it was somebody else that did it, they'd not only have to get up there themselves, they'd have to carry a body with them.
Right, unless she was alive and walking up.
That's actually a great point.
Like if they got her to come up there with her and then dropped her in. Like, she could have died in, again, it was an accidental drowning, right? So she was alive until she hit the water.
I believe, the cause of death was drowning.
The cause of death was declared drowning, which means they found water in her lungs, which means she was alive until she got in there, which means someone could have, guided her up there and told her, hey, climb this and jump in. It's like a swimming pool. And if she was really out of it or something was off, that could be one way of doing it. However, that still leaves the point of A, that's a very convoluted way of doing this. Mm-hmm. B, you're right next to an ocean, which has a better chance of hiding a body than these tanks. But C, that would still require, that doesn't explain how somebody got access to the roof, right? If one person did it, sure, you can sneak up there, fire escape, break a door, whatever. But if 2 people were doing it, you would think the staff would have seen.
I saw a really interesting theory about this, and I wonder what you think about this. So I saw something that said, she liked to take pictures, right? So she was an artistic person. She liked to take photos. Her Tumblr proves that. Yeah. So some people say maybe she went to the roof to get some pictures of the city. And she could have tried to climb on top of the water tank to get some pictures. I mean, why you would then open the hatch and get in the water?
That's the part.
Yeah, so there's flaws in every theory. I mean,
the only one that truly works is suicide.
Manic episode suicide. But, I mean, I don't think she necessarily intended to commit suicide. I think, if anything,
accidental suicide?
Yeah, I think if anything, it was like a mental episode that caused her death. But I mean, there's just been so much speculation in this case.
And that's the key, right? Like, when you find the body in a tub of water, or a vat of water, with very little access elsewhere, you have to start making these questions because it makes no sense. I mean, demonic possession actually makes quite a bit of sense. If she was not in any control of her faculties and ended up here, up there on the roof, that makes sense, because there's nothing else that makes absolute sense. If someone else did it, yeah, it would be difficult to do. If she was taking pictures, why open the hatch? If she was up there for any number of reasons to be on the roof, like, why does it matter?
So obviously this is a case that's gotten a lot of attention because of the bizarre circumstances, but okay.
And Netflix just did a documentary on it.
Yes, if you haven't checked it out, Netflix just did a documentary on this case, so please check that out. But what do you think, Soheeb? Like, what's your final best guess on what happened to this girl?
I am seriously, absolutely down to two theories.
Okay.
Number one, manic episode. It's an accidental suicide. I don't think that's what the intention was. It doesn't look like she was suicidal at any other point. But whatever her episodic issues were, it got the best of her, and she ended up in that water tank. The other one, I have very little proof for, but I'm going to stick to it because it also has the same value. Demonic possession. Demon took over her body, drowned her, left.
That is a theory. I mean, no joke. I mean, that is a theory.
Yeah. What are your theories?
I've thought about it for a while, and honestly, like, she's a young girl traveling by herself. I could see where she could have been, like, preyed upon by somebody, but at the same time, the elevator surveillance didn't show anybody else. And I think the most likely theory, sadly, I mean, as sad as it is that she ended up there due to some sort of mental issue. I'm not ruling out that somebody else could have had a role in this. I mean, you never know. She was kind of gesturing at something outside the elevator, whether that was a real person or that was something in her mind. We don't know, and we'll probably never know. But I think if I'm having to guess, I would say, you know, the most likely thing would be that she maybe was just suffering for some mental issues and had this kind of episode that led to her ending up in the water tank.
Yeah, I mean,
it's tough because you don't want to say that, because it's almost like if she was murdered, you want to fight for her.
You want to get justice, but...
You want to get justice for her, but like...
But there's nothing that says... there's nothing that actually points to murder.
You're right, and you've opened my eyes.
A whole lot of circumstantial evidence.
Right, and I think the fact that, like we were just talking about, it's like the whole thing of like, when people argue a point and then they realize like, well, wait, if it's like, well, how did Elisa get up there by herself? Okay, but then stop and think like, what's the alternative? How did another human being carrying Elisa get up there by herself? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it makes me think of the Judy Smith case, because it's like, people say like, you know, the body that was found in the forest, they're like, well, the person had the person had arthritis and Judy had arthritis, so she wouldn't have been climbing the thing. I mean, but the stupid part of that is the body that was found had arthritis in it. So whether it was Judy or not, someone with arthritis climbed the mountain.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, Judy had arthritis, she wouldn't have climbed the mountain. You know, it doesn't make sense. And that's kind of like this. In this case, it's like... I mean... It's like...
As we've been seeing in this week's defense of the impeachment, a lot of lawyers make bullshit arguments.
You went there.
I did. A lot of lawyers make bullshit arguments, and a part of those bullshit arguments is... basically, how well can you trick the jury? In this case, same thing, right? Like, how much...
No, not the same thing at all.
Somewhat. Like, how much doubt can you create around the whole situation in order for people to be like, well, I don't know. Like, what's next? What can we prove? What can't we prove? Like, let's keep this going. And you know what? Doubt is going to be the biggest factor of this, because there's no way to finally come up with a decision. There's no finality to this. There's going to be doubt and circumstance surrounding the whole thing, and you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, I think ultimately, best guess, most likely guess, whatever you want to say, I think she was, no, not a suicide. I think mental episode that led to her death. I don't think she intended to end her life.
Okay. Accidental suicide.
Sure, if that's a thing.
Because she killed, I mean, at the end of the day, the point is that whatever happened, she did it to herself, and that's how she died.
I mean, sadly, I hate to say it, and I feel for her family, and, you know, I think people tend to forget in these cases. They see, like, the horror aspect of it, they see the intrigue behind it, and they treat it like it's some kind of fictional, like, horror movie. But in reality, this is a real person that lost their life with their family, like, is devastated by this. It's like, it's very sad. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the evidence and the likelihood is that she was suffering from some mental things that caused her death. And could we be wrong? Yes.
It could easily be demonic possession.
It could be, somebody could have murdered her. We don't know. But the sad fact is, there's no evidence
Somebody could have been
that.
a demon. That's why there's no evidence. Demons don't leave fingerprints.
And on that note, anything else you'd like to say about this case, Soheem?
No, I think we've dissected it enough. I think it's interesting, especially when you consider everything else that's happened in this Cecil Hotel for the past 100 years.
Yes.
First recorded suicide being in 1924.
Yes, a lot of dark history at the Cecil Hotel, and I recommend anyone who doesn't know about it to look into it. It's a fairly old building, and there has been kind of some dark history with that hotel. So,
and even after years of rebranding, they still can't get around it. And I believe the city of LA has actually deemed it a historical landmark, so now you can't even destroy it. So here we are.
I didn't know that.
They need to knock that shit down because it's haunted.
Yes.
Demonically possessed.
Anyway.
Maybe the building's possessed. Dun, dun, dun.
Maybe. But yes, please do check out the documentary on Netflix if you haven't yet. And we'll post photos and links to this on our website, 143mysteries.com, and Instagram at 143mysteries. As always, feel free to leave me a case suggestion there. Otherwise, we'll see you next time, and stay safe. This podcast has been approved by Skipper the Cat. Right, Skippy?